Here's what all of this tells us. Your outcome is not predetermined. The statistics are not your destiny. The choices you make right now in the middle of this chaos are what determine where you'll land 5 years from now. You can be the statistic that struggles, or you can be the one who transforms. And that choice, that's your choice, and that's winning the future. Picture this moment. You're sitting in a conference room, fluorescent lights, the smell of stale coffee. Your attorney on one side, your ex's attorney on the other, and between you, stacks of documents that represent everything you've built together. Now, itemized, divided, and disputed. Your lawyer leans over and whispers, "We can fight this. We can win." And something in you lights up. Finally, a chance to win, to prove you were right, to get revenge, to make them see what they did to you, to get what you deserve. But here's a question that will define everything that comes next. What does winning actually mean? The ones who win in the court often lose in life. And the ones who shift their focus from winning the case to winning the future, they're the ones who actually build something worth having. Today, we're talking about something that might challenge everything you've been told about divorce. We're talking about winning the future, not the case. And if you stick with me through this episode, my hope is that you'll walk away with a completely different lens on what success may actually look like. This is going to be a deep dive. We're going to talk about research, about real stories, about the long-term impacts of the choices you make right now. And we're going to talk about what it actually takes to build a life you're proud of on the other side of this. So grab your coffee, your cocktail, find a quiet space, and let's do this work together. What does it mean to win the future? Let me start with the story. A few years ago, I worked with a client. Let's call her Rachel. Rachel came to me 6 months after her divorce was finalized. By all external measures, she had won. She got the house, primary custody, a favorable financial settlement. Her attorney called it a decisive victory. But when Rachel sat across from me in our first session, she said something I'll never forget. "I want everything I fought for, so why does it feel like I've lost everything that matters?" Rachel's kids were struggling in school. Her relationship with them was strained. They watched 2 years of high-conflict litigation and things they should never hear. Her ex was bitter, making co-parenting nearly impossible. And Rachel herself, she was exhausted, depleted. She'd spent $800 in legal fees, 2 years of her life in constant stress, and somewhere along the way, she lost herself. She won the case, but she was losing her life. Now, I want to be clear about something right up front. There are times when you absolutely need to fight in court. When there's abuse, addiction, parental alienation, financial malfeasance. Yes, you fight. You protect yourself. You protect your kids. But here's what I've observed. Most divorces don't require total war. Most divorces are between two fundamentally decent people who couldn't make the marriage work. And in those cases, which is most cases, the battle itself becomes the problem. So when I talk about winning the future, I'm talking about something radically different from what our adversarial legal system is designed for. I'm talking about creating a life you actually want to live 5 years from now, building financial stability that lasts beyond the settlement, raising children who feel safe, loved, and emotionally healthy, reconstructing your identity and confidence, developing the capacity to trust yourself, creating inner peace that doesn't depend on what your ex does or doesn't do. This isn't about being passive. It isn't about rolling over. It's about being strategic with what matters most. It's about recognizing that there are two parallel processes happening in divorce. There's a legal process, necessary, important, required, and there's an end date. And then there's a life process, the one that determines who you become, how your children adapt, what your next 20, 30, 40 years look like. Most people put 90% of their energy into the legal process and 10% into the life process. And then they wonder why, when the legal process ends, they feel so lost. They're so confused. Winning the future means inverting that ratio. Why focusing on winning the case creates long-term losses? Well, let's talk about what happens when you make winning the case your primary goal. And I get it. The pull is powerful. You've been hurt, betrayed maybe, certainly disappointed, and the legal system offers you something seductive, the possibility of vindication, of being declared right, of making them pay. But here's what the research tells us, and this is critical. A landmark study published in the Journal of Family Psychology followed over 1,000 divorced families for 12 years. The research found that the intensity of legal conflict was the single strongest predictor of negative long-term outcomes for adults and children, stronger than who initiated the divorce, stronger than financial circumstances, stronger even than pre-existing mental health issues. High conflict divorce was associated with 3 times higher rates of ongoing parental conflict post-divorce, 2 times higher rates of anxiety and depression in children 5 to 10 years later, significantly lower life satisfaction scores for both parents, higher rates of physical health problems, including cardiovascular issues. Think about it. The very thing you think will help you win, aggressive litigation, fighting over every detail, is statistically likely to make your life worse, not just during the divorce, years afterwards. Dr. Robert Emery, a psychologist at the University of Virginia who studied divorce for 4 decades, put it this way: you can win the battle and lose the war. The battle is the divorce, the war is the rest of your life. I see this pattern constantly. Someone comes to me and says, my attorney says we can destroy them in court. And I say, okay, but then what? You destroy them in court. Let's say you win everything. They're bitter, broke, and angry. How does that affect your co-parenting? How does that affect your kids? How does that affect your stress levels, your health, your ability to move forward? Because here's the thing. In most cases, you don't get to be done with your ex, especially if you have kids. You're going to be in each other's lives for decades. Graduations, weddings, grandchildren, medical emergencies, holidays. Every bit of scorched earth you create now, you're going to have to walk through later. Now, I know that some of you are thinking, but Justin, you don't know my ex. They're impossible. They're unreasonable. I have to fight. And maybe you're right. Maybe your ex is high conflict. Maybe they are making everything harder. But here's the question I want you to sit with. Even if that's true, what strategy gives you the best chance of building the life you actually want? Because sometimes the answer isn't to match their energy. Sometimes the answer is to be so clear about your long-term goals that you don't get pulled into battles that don't serve your future. The mindset shift from courtroom victories to life victories. So how do you make this shift? How do you stop thinking like someone trying to win a case and start thinking like someone trying to win a life? It starts with getting clear on what you're actually optimizing. In my coaching practice, I use a framework. I call it the 5-year filter. Every major decision you make during divorce, I want you to ask, will this decision make my life better or worse 5 years from now? Not 5 days from now, not what feels satisfying in the moment, 5 years. Let me give you some examples of what this looks like in practice. Example 1, your ex wants to keep the antique dining table you both inherited from your grandmother. In the moment, it feels personal. It feels like they're taking something that matters to you. It's your family's after all. Your attorney says you can fight for it. 5-year filter question. Will fighting over this table improve your life in 2030? Will it matter more than preserving goodwill for co-parenting? More than saving $5,000 in legal fees? Only you can answer that. Example 2. Your ex's attorney sends an aggressive email making accusations. Everything in you wants to respond to defend yourself to escalate. 5-year filter. Will this email exchange matter in 2030? Will anyone remember who was right about this? Or will what matters be that you don't add fuel to the fire and would have burned out on its own? And also, if they're a narcissist, you're never going to win. Example 3. You have an opportunity to settle. It's not perfect. You'd get 60% of what you think is fair, not 100%. But settlement means you can end this, move forward, reclaim your energy and time. 5-year filter. Will the additional 40% you might get if you keep fighting be worth the additional year of stress, $30,000 in legal fees, and the toll on your mental health and your child's well-being? Only you know the answer to that. But what I've learned is that people who thrive after divorce are the ones who get really clear on what actually matters. And then they make every decision in service of that, not in service of being right or winning. They ask themselves, what kind of parent do I want to be? What kind of life do I want to build? What kind of life do I want to live? What does peace actually look like for me? What does financial stability require? Who do I want to become through this process? And then they make decisions, legal, financial, emotional, that align with those answers. This is a shift from reaction to intentional, from being pulled by your ex's choices to be led by your own vision. And that right here is where transformation begins. The architecture of winning the future. Here are the 5 pillars of winning the future. So let's get practical. If winning the future is the goal, what does that actually require? What are you building towards? I'll break it down into 5 pillars. Think of these as the foundation of the You 2.0 life. 5 domains that, if you get them right, will completely change your trajectory. Pillar 1, emotional and mental health. This is the foundation of everything else. If your mental health is deteriorating, nothing else works. Not co-parenting, not career decisions, not relationship, not work, nothing. And here's what we know from the research. Divorce is one of the most stressful life events a person can experience. right up there with death of a loved one and job loss. It triggers every stress system in your body. A study at the University of Arizona found that people going through divorce showed biological markers of chronic stress comparable to those with serious chronic illness: elevated cortisol, disrupted sleep, compromised immune function. But here's a crucial part. These effects aren't inevitable. They're the result of how you go through divorce, not the divorce itself. People who prioritize their mental health during divorce, who see therapists, who join support groups, who work with coaches, who implement stress reduction practices, show dramatically different outcomes. Research published in Clinical Psychology Review found that people who engaged in therapeutic support during divorce returned to baseline mental health within 18 to 24 months. People who didn't, often still struggling, 5 years later. So what does winning the future look like in this domain? It looks like making therapy or coaching non-negotiable, non-optional, building a support system that includes people who've been through this, implementing daily practices, meditation, exercise, journaling, and recognizing that your mental health is as important as any legal strategy. Treating yourself with the same compassion you'd offer a best friend. And remember, your children are watching. Your emotional regulation becomes their model of how to handle hard things that they will be dealing with at some point in their life. Pillar 2, co-parenting and children's well-being. Let's talk about your kids, because here's the hard truth. Your kids don't care who was right. They don't care who initiated the divorce or who cheated or who was more difficult. What they care about is this: do I still feel safe? Do both my parents still love me? Is this chaos going to end? And the research on this is unambiguous. A comprehensive meta-analysis from the Journal of Marriage and Family that reviewed over 200 studies found that the children's long-term adjustment after divorce is almost entirely dependent on two factors: the level of ongoing conflict between the parents and the quality of the child's relationship with each parent. Everything else, who got the house, how the money was divided, even the parent who has primary custody, mattered far less than those two things. Children in low conflict divorces, where parents maintained respectful communication and prioritized their children's emotional needs, showed no significant differences in long-term outcomes compared to children from intact families. No significant differences. But the children exposed to high conflict divorce, ongoing parental fighting, bad-mouthing, using kids as messengers or weapons, showed elevated rates of anxiety, depression, academic struggles, and relationship difficulties that lasted well into adulthood. So winning the future in this domain means never using your children as messengers, spies, or therapists, never bad-mouthing your ex in front of them, even when it's deserved, creating consistency and stability in your home, protecting them from adult conflicts and financial stress, being the parent who creates safety even when everything else is uncertain. Is this easy? No, especially when your ex is being difficult, especially when you're hurt. But your children didn't choose this, and they're counting on at least one parent to be the adult, to be steady, to show that the love doesn't end just because the marriage does. That's what winning looks like here. Pillar 3, financial stability. Let's talk about money, because financial stress is one of the biggest obstacles to rebuilding your life. And most people make critical financial mistakes during divorce, not because they're dumb, but because they're emotional. The research is clear. Financial decisions made during high emotional stress are consistently worse than decisions made with clarity and strategic thinking. A study from Ohio State University found that people lose, on average, 77% of their net worth during divorce, not because of the division itself, but because of poor decision-making during the process. Impulse settlements, fighting over the wrong things, not planning for tax implications, not understanding long-term costs. Winning the future financially means working with a financial advisor who specializes in divorce, understanding the difference between assets that look good now versus income that sustains you later, not fighting for the house if you can actually afford it long-term, thinking about retirement, healthcare, children's education, not just the immediate split, making decisions based on cash flow and sustainability, not emotion. Because here's the thing, you can win by getting the house and the car and the retirement account, and then find yourself broke in 3 years because you didn't account for ongoing costs. Financial stability isn't about the size of the settlement. It's about making choices that set you up for long-term security and success. Pillar 4, identity, reconstruction, and confidence. One of the most overlooked aspects of divorce is what it does to your identity. For years, maybe decades, you've been a we. Decisions were made together. Your identity was intertwined with your partner's. You were someone's spouse. And now, who are you? The identity crisis is real and it's profound. Psychologists call this self-concept disruption. When a relationship ends, especially a long-term one, you don't just lose a partner, you lose a version of yourself. Research published in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin found that divorce causes a significant drop in self-concept clarity. People literally become less sure of who they are, and this uncertainty correlates with higher anxiety, lower life satisfaction, and difficulty making decisions. But here's where it gets interesting. This disruption is also an opportunity. Post-traumatic growth research, which studies people who've experienced major life crises, show that these moments or identity dissolution can lead to profound positive change. People often report, years later, that the crisis forced them to discover parts of themselves they'd lost or never knew existed. They became more authentic, more aligned with their values, more clear about what they actually want, not what they thought they should want. Doing the identity work, therapy, coaching, journaling, self-reflection, reconnecting with who you were before the marriage, exploring who you want to become now, rebuilding confidence through small wins and new challenges, giving yourself permission to evolve, change, try new things. This is scary. I won't pretend it isn't, but it's also where the magic happens, where you 2.0 is born. The fifth pillar is long-term peace and resilience. Take a breath. The final pillar is about peace, not the absence of problems, but the capacity to stay grounded when problems arise. Because here's the reality. Life doesn't stop being hard after divorce. Your ex might still be difficult. Co-parenting will have challenges. You'll face financial stress, dating, anxiety, parenting struggles. The question isn't whether you'll face adversity. The question is, who do you become in relationship to it? Resilience research, particularly from the work of people like Dr. Stephen Southwick at Yale and Dr. Martin Siegelman at Penn, show that resilience isn't something you have or don't have. It's something you've built. And it's built through having a clear sense of purpose, maintaining strong social connections, practicing self-compassion, developing a growth mindset, and seeing challenges as opportunities for learning, building physical health and stress tolerance. Winning the future means building a life where your peace isn't dependent on external circumstances, where your ex's choice don't determine your emotional state, where you have the internal resources to handle whatever comes. This is a long game. This is what lasts. Let's zoom out for a moment and look at what the research tells us about long-term divorce outcomes. Because one of the most damaging myths about divorce is that it ruins lives permanently. That if you get divorced, you're doomed to be unhappy. Your kids are doomed to struggle and nothing will ever be good again. That's not what the data shows. First, let's talk about adults. A longitudinal study published in the Journal of Happiness Studies follows people for 18 years before, during, and after divorce. Here's what they found. Yes, there's a significant dip in life satisfaction during the divorce itself. That's real. But here's the key. Most people return to their baseline happiness level within 2 to 5 years. Those who get coaching really do the work. Some even exceed their pre-divorce happiness levels. The people who thrived, they were the ones who engaged in their personal growth work, built strong support systems, didn't stay stuck in anger or victimhood, created new purpose and meaning in their lives. The people who struggled long-term, they were the ones who stayed in high conflict relationships with their ex. They isolated themselves. They remained bitter or stuck in the past. They don't address their mental health. All right, let's talk about the children. The largest metadata analysis ever done on children of divorce, reviewing data from over 67,000 children, found something surprising. Children from low conflict divorce had similar long-term outcomes to children from intact families. Similar rates of educational attainment, similar relationship stability, similar mental health. It goes to show you that it's not divorce that destroys kids. It's how parents handle divorce that destroys kids. The children who struggled were specifically those exposed to high ongoing conflict, either in an intact family or after divorce. In other words, it's not divorce itself that harms children. It's conflict. Children often do better than they would in a high contact, intact family. Now, I'm not saying divorce is good for kids. I'm saying that if divorce is happening, the way you handle it determines the outcome. Dr. Mavis Hetherington, who conducted a landmark 30-year study following children of divorce, concluded, the majority of children from divorced families are resilient. They experience transient problems following divorce, but most recover fully and function well. The key word transient, temporary, not even permanent damage, not lifelong trauma, temporary adjustments. If parents create the right environment. Third, the impact of support. Research from the American Journal of Family Therapy compared people who use therapeutic support during divorce versus those who don't. Those who worked with therapists, coaches, and/or support groups showed 40% faster return to baseline mental health, significantly better co-parenting relationships, lower rates of returning to court, higher self-reported life satisfaction 3 to 5 years post-divorce. The investment in support, whether that's therapy, coaching, or quality support groups, pays dividends for years. Here's what all of this tells us. Your outcome is not predetermined. The statistics are not your destiny. The choices you make right now in the middle of this chaos are what determine where you'll land 5 years from now. You can be the statistic that struggles, or you can be the one who transforms. And that choice, that's your choice, and that's winning the future. Coming You 2.0, the role of divorce coaching and strategic support. Let's explore for a minute about what coaching actually does in this process, because I think there's confusion about this. Coaching isn't therapy. Therapy helps you understand your past, heal wounds, process trauma. That's essential work. Coaching is about strategy for your future. It's about helping you make better decisions right now when everything is foggy and emotional and overwhelming. Think of it this way. Therapy helps you understand why you feel the way you do, helps you cope. Coaching helps you decide what to do about it. In my practice, coaching looks like helping you clarify your long-term goals so you can make strategic decisions. Being the person who asks, what does winning actually look like for you when you're about to fight over something that doesn't matter? Creating a framework for co-parenting communication that reduces conflict. Walking through financial decisions with a clear, unemotional lens. Helping you rebuild your identity and confidence systematically, and holding space for the grief while also calling you forward into your power. I had a client recently tell me, my therapist helped me understand why I was so angry. You helped me figure out what to do with that anger so it didn't destroy my life. That's just one difference. The average divorce takes at least 12 months. The average person takes 5 years to fully recover emotionally and rebuild their life. The people I work with, they start feeling better in 2 to 3 weeks. They consistently report that being able to focus on the future and winning their future, they would never be there without coaching. Not because I have magic answers, but because having someone in your corner who sees the big picture, who knows the research, who's walked this path, it changes everything. This is not a skill set that attorneys typically have. You don't have to figure this out alone, and you shouldn't. Let's talk about how to be the parent your kids need. I want to spend a few minutes talking directly to you about your kids, because this matters more than anything else we've discussed today. Your children are going through their own version of grief and loss, and they're doing it without the cognitive capacity to fully process it. They don't have the language. They don't have the emotional tools. Their brains are still developing. What they have is you. Here's what children need during and after divorce, according to decades of research and thousands of clinical observations. 1, emotional safety. They need to know that both parents still love them, that the divorce isn't their fault, that nothing they did caused this. You have to say 3 things out loud multiple times because kids internalize guilt in ways we don't always see. 2, consistency, structure, routine. When everything feels chaotic, routine becomes the anchor. Same bedtime, same rituals, same expectations. These things tell a child's nervous system, even though things are changing, I'm still safe. 3, permission to love both parents. This is hard, especially if your ex hurt you, but children need to know they both can love you without betraying one of you. Never, ever make them choose. Never make them feel guilty for wanting time with the other parent. 4, protection from adult stress. They don't need to know about your financial struggles, your legal batters, the anger. They need to know that the container that you hold for them is strong and that these items are not in there. 5, honesty appropriate to their age. Don't lie, but don't overshare. Your dad and I love you very much, but we realized we were better as separate parents than as married people. Is very different from your dad cheated and destroyed our family. Same truth, different delivery. One protects them, one burdens them. I know this is hard. I know there are days where you want to scream about how unfair it is, when you want your kids to understand what you've been through. But here's the thing. Your job isn't to make them understand your pain. That would be transferring your pain to them, and that's not right. Your job is to protect them from it. They'll understand the adult complexity at a later date. Right now, they just need safety. And here's what the research promises. Children who have at least one parent who creates emotional safety, who models resilience, who shows them that love doesn't end, those children turn out just fine. They become adults who know how to handle hard things, who have healthy relationships, who understand that endings don't have to be destruction. You're not just getting through a divorce, you're teaching your children how to be human in the face of hardship. And that's winning the future. Reclaiming your identity and rebuilding your confidence. Let's talk about you for a minute. Not you as a co-parent, not you as a client in a legal case, just you. Who are you without this marriage? Who were you before it? Who do you want to become? These are scary questions. I know, because for a long time, your identity is being merged with someone else's. Your decisions, your home, your social circle, maybe even your hobbies and interests. They've all been shaped by this partnership. And now that's gone. I remember after my own divorce, standing in my new apartment alone and realizing, I don't even know what I like to do anymore. I don't even know what I want for dinner. I don't know what shows to watch. These tiny decisions, they felt enormous because they weren't just about dinner or TV. They were about who I am when I get to choose for myself. This identity reconstruction phase is one of the most challenging parts of divorce, but it's also where the most profound growth happens. Because here's what I've seen over and over again. The people who do this work, who actually explore who they are, who they want to become, they emerge more confident, more authentic, more alive than they've been in years. I am proof of this. They started saying no to things they never wanted to do in the first place. They started pursuing interests they set aside. They'd rebuild friendships they neglected. They'd become brave in ways they'd forgotten they could be. So how do you actually do this work? Here's what I recommend. Step 1, reconnect with your past self. Who were you at 18, at 25, before the marriage? What did you love? What made you feel alive? Go back and remember that person. They're still in there. Step 2, try new things. This sounds simple, but it's crucial. Take a class, join a group, try a sport you've never done, travel somewhere alone. The point isn't to find your new passion. The point is to prove to yourself that you can still be someone who tries things. That builds confidence. Step 3, invest in growth, therapy, coaching, books, podcasts, workshops. Treat your personal development like a serious project, because it really is. Step 4, build new relationships. Not romantic, not yet, but friendships. A community of people who know you, who respect you, who understand that you are you, not just half of a couple. These relationships mirror back a new version of yourself. And step 5, practice self-compassion. You're going to mess up. You're going to have days where you feel like moving backwards. That's part of the process. Treat yourself the way you treat a dear friend going through this. Rebuilding your identity isn't about becoming someone completely new. It's about excavating the person you've always been beneath the roles you've played. It's about becoming more of you, not less. And that version of you, the one that emerges from this fire, that's you 2.0. I want to share a few stories with you. Real people, real transformation. Eric came to me 2 years into a bitter custody battle. He'd spent over $150,000 in legal fees. His relationship with his ex was toxic. His kids were showing signs of anxiety, and he was exhausted. In our first session, he said, I just want to win. I want the court to see who she really is. I asked him, and then what? Let's say you win. You get everything you're asking for. What's your life look like 5 years from now? He couldn't answer. So we started there. We created a vision for his future. What did he actually want? Not what did he want to prevent? What did he want to create? He wanted peace. He wanted his kids to feel safe with both parents. He wanted to date again and to maybe remarry. He wanted financial stability. He wanted to stop waking up at 3 a.m. with his chest tight. Once he got clear on that, everything changed. He settled the custody dispute, not because he gave up, but because he realized that continuing to fight wasn't going to give him the life he wanted. Today, 3 years later, his kids are thriving. He's remarried. He and his ex have a functional co-parenting relationship. He has peace. He didn't win the case he originally wanted, but he absolutely won in the future. Then there's Amanda. She came to me right at the beginning of her divorce. She was terrified. Her ex made significantly more money than she did. She hadn't worked in 12 years. She'd been home with the kids as a mother. Her attorney was pushing her to fight for alimony, max out child support, go for as much as possible. But Amanda said something remarkable. I don't want to spend the next 5 years fighting. I don't want to destroy him. I don't want my kids to grow up watching their parents hate each other. What's the minimum I need to be okay? Let's start there. We built a very realistic financial plan, got really clear on what okay actually meant. She went back to school, started rebuilding her career, negotiated a settlement that was fair, not maximum, but fair. She felt good about that. And you know what happened? Because she approached it collaboratively, her ex actually helped her. He gave her more than the initial offer because she wasn't trying to destroy him, and he felt she might need some more. Last month, she texted me a photo of her first paycheck from her new job. She's fully self-sufficient now. Her kids are proud of her, her ex is supportive, and she has something money can't buy, dignity, self-respect, and peace. She won the future. One more, Alex. His wife left him for someone else. He was devastated, humiliated, angry. For 6 months, he was stuck in that anger. Wouldn't move forward on the divorce. Wouldn't engage in settlement talks. He wanted her to hurt the way he was hurting. In one of our sessions, I said, Alex, you get to be angry. That's valid. But I have a question. How long are you willing to let her determine your emotional state? Because right now, she's living her life with someone new, and you're sitting here stuck. Who's actually winning? That hit him hard. The next week, he came back and said, I don't want to give her that power anymore. I want to reclaim it. I want my life back. What do I need to do? We built a plan, not just legal, a full life plan. He started therapy, joined a men's group, started exercising again, settled the divorce quickly and efficiently. A year and a half later, he's a different person, confident, happy, dating, following a dream he'd put off for 15 years. He recently told me, the divorce was the worst thing that happened to me and the best thing that happened to me. It broke me open. I didn't know I had this new chapter in me, but I'm super excited. But what came through, he recently told me, the divorce was both the worst and best thing that happened to me. It broke me open. I didn't know there was another chapter, but I found the real me in there. He won the future. These aren't exceptional people. They're everyday people just like me and you, who hurt, who struggle, who faced impossible choices, but they made a decision. They were going to win the future, not just the case. And that made all the difference. We're near the end of our time together today, and I want to leave you with something you can carry forward. If you take nothing else from this episode, take this. The courtroom isn't where your future is decided. You are. Every day you're making choices. Some of them are big, legal decisions, financial settlements, custody arrangements, but most of them are small. How you respond to your ex's texts, whether you just vent about them in front of your kids, whether you invest in therapy or tell yourself you can't afford it, whether you let bitterness become your identity or choose consciously to rebuild. These small choices compound. They build the trajectory of your life. And 5 years from now, you're going to look back and realize the verdict that mattered wasn't the one the judge issued. It's the one you issued for yourself through your daily choices. I know this is hard. I know there are days where you don't want to be the bigger person, when you want to fight, when you want them to pay for what they did. Trust me, I know. I sat in this for 3 years and it just kept me stuck. I get it. I've been there. But I'm asking you to consider, what do you want more? Do you want vindication or do you want peace? Do you want to be right or do you want to be free? Do you want to win the case or do you want to win your life? You're standing at a fork in the road right now. One path leads to a long, exhausting battle that might give you the settlement that you can feel good about for a few weeks. The other path leads to a life you can feel good about for decades. Both paths are hard. Both require courage, but only one leads you to you 2.0. So here's my invitation to you. Start thinking like someone who's building a future, not fighting a battle. Get support, hire a coach, see a therapist, join a support group, go to the gym, read books, listen to podcasts, do the work. Protect your family's emotional safety above all else. Make financial decisions based on long-term stability, not short-term satisfaction. Invest in your identity reconstruction. Figure out who you are and who you want to become. Choose peace, not as weakness, but as a strategy. And remember, this doesn't last forever. The intensity you're feeling right now, it too will pass. The fog will clear, and on the other side, there's a version of you that's stronger, wiser, more authentic than you've ever been. Because you have to choose that future every day in small ways and big ways. The goal of divorce isn't to win the case, it's to win your life. And you, my friend, are worth winning for. Thank you for being here today. I know this was a heavy episode, but I hope it gave you something useful, something you can hold on to. If it resonated with you, I invite you to check out my book, You 2.0, Divorce, A Better Way Forward, and the companion You 2.0 workbook, both available on Amazon and are practical tools to help you get through this. It's not just theory, it's lived experiences with actionable steps. And if you're ready for one-on-one support, I'd be honored to work with you if we're a good fit. You can book a free 30-minute consultation at my website, www.reclaimandreboot.me. That's www.reclaimandreboot.me. If this episode helped you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a review, and remember, you're not alone in this. This is a Conscious Divorce podcast. I'm Justin Norrad, and I'm rooting for your future. Take good care.